control, never looking back. I surrender all. I'm living for your glory on the earth. This passion in my heart, this stirring in my soul, to see the nations bow, for all the world to know, I'm living for your glory on the earth. The sake of the world. Who breaks the power of sin and darkness, whose love is mighty and so much stronger, the King of glory, the King above all kings, who shakes the whole earth with holy thunder, who leaves us breathless in awe and wonder, the King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross, you would lay down your life, that I would be set free. Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me, all that you've done for me. Who brings our chaos back into order? Who makes the orphan a son and daughter? The King of glory, the King above all kings. Who rules the nations with truth and justice, shines like the sun in all of its brilliance. The King of glory, the King above all kings. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place, that you would bear my cross, you would lay down your life, that I would be set free. Oh, Jesus, I sing for all that you've done for me. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain, and worthy is the King who conquered the grave, and worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Yeah, worthy is the King who conquers the grave, and worthy is the Lamb who was slain, and worthy is the King who conquers the grave. Worthy is the Lamb who was slain. Worthy, worthy, worthy. This is amazing grace. This is unfailing love, that you would take my place,
You're muted, Jen.
Sometimes even the host forgets the unmute button. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jennifer Bober, and I work in marketing and communications here at Renew International. And we are so thrilled to have you here today for this 25th Parish Catalyst webinar. Nice milestone for our program. And our host, John Pointerman, who will join us in a moment. Just to let you know, we are recording this webinar. You will receive a copy of that recording. And if you have questions, please do not hesitate to find the question box, enter your questions, and we will pass them along. And as we get started, we have a question for you. And I'm setting up a poll for you. So we would really love to hear your response and hear back from you about the topics that really resonate with you, what you would like to see for webinars coming from Parish Catalyst in the next year. And oh, I see wonderful people are filling those out. So please, yeah, we'll take just a few moments as more people are coming on, people are signing on to get your responses and see what you would like to hear from us about. And there is John.
Hey.
Welcome, John. He is our presenter today, and do you want to let this run for a moment or two, the poll here?
Yeah, let's let it run. We just want to hear, we've done, if you're joining us today, congratulations, you're a part of our 25th webinar at Parish Catalyst. And that may not sound like a lot, but when you only do it once a month and you typically don't do it in December, it takes a while to put those together. And when we first started this, our only desire was just to equip the church, to equip parish leaders to better serve your parish and make disciples. So we are asking what you want to hear about next year, what would be the most helpful, because that's what's the most important to us. So please, if you would, select what's most important to you there. And there'll be a survey also in the email that goes out later where you can write in your own ideas. Would love to hear some of your creative ideas for webinars. And then also, Jen, will you share with them about the chat window?
Absolutely. There is a chat window, and let's see, you can send your chat and comments in there. If you've got ideas you want to share with us, please put them there. We're always happy to hear from you guys. You are on the ground and in the field, and you know what works, and where you've had success. We would love to hear about it.
Yeah, and then as I talk, Jennifer is going to be kind of live posting in that window links to anything that's pertinent that you might want to check out later. So keep an eye on that chat window. If there's something that you hear and you think, I'd like to know where that is. And those links will also be sent to you in the email that comes out after this webinar. So. And also be sure you scroll down on that poll. There's more at the bottom. There's hybrid models for church, re-engaging parishioners, sacramental prep, multicultural parishes. Looks like everybody has responded. So let's see what the results look like there. It looks like young families and millennials are huge, but re-engaging parishioners is #1. No shocker there. That's a webinar that we've been wanting to do for a while. So we'll be doing that soon in the new year. Awesome. Well, thank you, Jennifer, for getting us started. And Paul's on with us, not visible right now, but he'll be joining us later for some Q&A. And thank you for filling out that poll. All right, so we are talking today about strategic planning, which is a huge part of what we do at Parish Catalyst. A lot of people ask us, how are you different from other parish renewal organizations? And I haven't been through any of the others as a participant. I've seen some of the websites, but I can't tell you what is really key and important and strategic for us. And that is to help you plan uniquely for the needs of your parish. We're not as prescriptive as a lot of other organizations in the way that we foster renewal. We definitely give you a lot of best practices, a lot of things that parishes are doing around the country. a lot of things that we found to be important and vital for parish renewal. But in the end, you are the ones who've got to adapt these ideas to your community, your parishioners, the culture of your parish, the leadership of your parish. And so today we're going to talk about how you can do that and what are some real important elements of that. And then in the second half of our webinar, I'm going to bring on an old friend that you've seen many times, Flip Sanchez, the former executive director of Parish Catalyst, because he is out doing what you do. He's a director of operations at a large parish, and want to hear what he's learned, what he brought from Parish Catalyst to this new job, and the challenges that he's facing in planning for the future, and maybe some ways that he's found to break through those challenges. So I'm going to go to our slideshow now, and we'll start the presentation. You know, if you received the email that went out promoting this webinar, talking about it, you saw I started with this quote from Mike Tyson, who had a fight recently. But Mike Tyson is famously known for saying that everybody has a plan until they get punched in the face. And this is true, but my question in response to that is, what if you have a plan for getting punched in the face? If you're a fighter, you better have a plan for getting punched in the face. What are you going to do when things don't go the way that you planned them to? And I think this is an important part of planning for the future, is not just planning for our preferred future, what we hope to happen, but also thinking about and planning for what do we do when things don't turn out the way that we had hoped they would, and be prepared for that. So we've had a lot of that this past year, and I think we're all learning how to think about like backup plans, worst case scenarios. What do we do? So I want to start with 4 keys to creating a successful strategic plan. These are the foundation. Later, we're going to talk about the how-to and tools for that, but these are the foundation for creating a successful strategic plan. And the first one is mission and vision clarity. You want to have a clear mission, and you want to have a clear vision for what you hope that mission accomplishes. A lot of people ask me, what's the difference between a mission statement and a vision statement? A mission statement is evergreen, it's unchanging. It is who we are and what we're called to do. And if you are a parish, that is to make disciples. And some would take it further to say, make disciples that make disciples and transform the world. Your vision is what you see that mission accomplishing. Vision, it's visible. We see in the future, we see a parish where every parishioner walks as a disciple of Christ, impacting the world around them and leading others in a relationship with Christ. So if we don't start our planning with a clear mission and vision in mind, I've heard it said that if your goal is nothing in particular, that's exactly what you will accomplish, right? And our goal can't just be participation or outcomes or just very basic product of what we would expect in normal church life. It can't just be more people coming to Mass. What do we hope to happen in the lives of those people? What do we hope to see as a result, the outcomes we'd like to see a result of that? Stephen Covey, in his book, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, which I highly encourage you to check out, he says, start with the end in mind. This is kind of a classic saying. It's pretty well known. Another thing that we say is start with why. You've probably heard me reference Simon Sinek's TED Talk, Start With Why, many times. Check it out. It'll help you better start with the end in mind. The second thing is patience. Strategic planning is not something we can rush through. It's funny, when I talk to parishes or meet with parishes about planning for the future, they say, could we just do this like our plan meet? Could we do the whole thing in about 2 hours? And I think, you're planning for 365 days and all you want to dedicate to it is 2 hours. Really? When parishes come through our learning community process, every time we gather for 2 to 3 days. And all of that is part of this strategic planning process. Abraham Lincoln said, "Give me 6 hours to chop down a tree, and I will spend the first 4 sharpening the axe." I want you to think about strategic planning as a sharpening of the axe. It allows you to be so much more effective and accurate and strategic in fulfilling your mission. And I can't emphasize enough, give it time, dedicate time for it to kind of marinate, for things to, good ideas to come to the surface. Another great video is called Where Good Ideas Come From. And that's one I encourage you to check out as well. It talks about how good ideas need space and time to interact and for people to reflect on them and to rise to the surface. The third thing is collaboration. Great strategic plans are not created in isolation by a leader who then comes out and delivers it to everyone and says, okay, here's what you're going to do because I've created it. This African proverb is so true. If you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And I would say a great leadership failure I see is leaders wanting to go fast alone and they want everyone else to jump in and make it happen. And yeah, decisions are made a lot more quickly alone, but it doesn't mean you're going to go far. So by incorporating other people, here's a few things you gain. You gain a better evaluation or a better perspective on what the needs of the parish are because you get input from other people. You get more creative ideas on how to solve those problems, and you have a cumulative brain trust of giftings and ideas and experiences of people. And then thirdly, you get more buy-in. When you engage more people in the process, you get more buy-in because they were a part of creating the strategy. As we'll talk about later, you don't use tons of people through the entire process. You use more people at the beginning and fewer people at the end, but you want to engage stakeholders in the process. And then fourth is accountability. Another, I think, really important part of the Parish Catalyst learning community process that I think makes it effective is there's accountability. You're in a learning community with 10 other parishes and their teams. And every 6 months, you come back with your strategic plan and tell them what worked, where you struggled, where you failed to even follow through. Without accountability, things tend to not get done. It's just a fact, right? Bob Proctor, he wrote the Law of Attraction. He says, accountability is the glue that bonds commitments to results. And think about a strategic plan as a way that you are building your parish. And accountability is the glue that holds that building together. All those good intentions, those commitments, those great ideas, without accountability, they all fall apart. So it's a very necessary part of a strategic plan being effective in the long run. Successful planning includes principles and a process. So I've given you some principles. I've given you some foundational characteristics of a successful strategic plan. Now I want to give you a process for coming to that plan. A lot of people love to brainstorm. They'll talk about brainstorming. Let's have a brainstorming meeting. Have you been a part of one of these? Research shows that typical, just free-form brainstorming meetings don't work. The loudest people with the strongest personalities get their ideas out there. Some people who are really smart but more passive or introverted will not engage at all. And then there's kind of just this pile of ideas that don't have any focus to them. So this article we'll include this article in the email that comes out after this, talks about how you can do successful brainstorming, how you can actually have a structured process to that brainstorming. And I encourage you to check that out. We're going to give you a process now that works, but check that email or that story out as well. As I said, successful planning needs a process. Our process starts with examining or evaluating what is. What's the current state of our parish? Or this whole process you can use parish-wide, or you can do it with a specific ministry. You can do it with your weekend mass experience, your online experience. You can do it with sacramental prep. You can do it with RCIA. You do it with any part of your parish. First, start with evaluating and examining what is. Then you explore what could be. What are best practices that are out there? What are some outside of the box ideas that we've never tried before? What are some solutions to our problems that are not the way that we've always done it? And then lastly, we determine or decide what will be, and we create a plan based on evaluating what is, based on exploring and dreaming about what could be. We take all of that data and create a plan as to what will be. So I want to dive a little deeper in each of those. This first one, evaluating what is. Now, this is the first part of the process, and it's an incredibly important part of the process. And evaluating what is only as successful as it is honest. What I mean is, if there's a culture that's been established by the leadership where people don't feel safe in expressing where things are failing, then they will not be honest about their evaluation of what is. And it's kind of like someone who goes to the doctor and refuses to tell them what their symptoms are. They just want to have a positive attitude. They want everything to be healthy. So they just tell the doctor, hey, everything's good, I'm fine. Well, the doctor's not going to do a very good job of fixing their problems, right? So the same thing, we've got to create a culture where it is safe for people to speak up about where things aren't great, where we're struggling, where we could be better. And it needs to be a safe environment for people to do that so that we can really have an honest assessment of where we need help. One really basic tool for this is called a SWOT analysis. Businesses use this, organizations use this. You identify your strengths, your weaknesses, your opportunities, and your threats to success. And you use this data to see where you need help, where you could change. You would just take each of these things, and let's say we're talking about our online mass experience. So what are our strengths? Well, we have good technology. We've invested in good cameras. We have good bandwidth on the internet. We have good audio. What are our weaknesses? Well, actually, our lighting is not great. It doesn't look great visually because of that. And we're not doing very good on our transitions between things. What are opportunities? Well, there's some big opportunities because we actually haven't promoted online mass as much as we could. So we're going to do that more. And then what are threats? Our threats could be that we haven't invested. We don't have the resources financially. Our threats could be that people are becoming tired of us doing the same thing over and over again. So maybe we need to add some creativity to what we do online. So this is just an example of how you can use a SWOT analysis to evaluate any part of your parish. Another thing that we do in our learning communities for many different areas of parish life is a report card. And in a report card, you simply write down some key things about the thing that or the area that you're wanting to evaluate, and then you give yourself a grade, A, B, C, D, F. This one is just a report card for strategic planning. How well are we doing in those 4 keys? Have we articulated our mission and vision well? Are we patient in strategic planning? Do we collaborate? Do we invite a lot of people into the conversation? Do we hold ourselves accountable? And I can tell you again, if staff and leaders don't feel like it's safe for them to be honest about where you're struggling, you're never going to identify your weaknesses or where you need to improve. And then after we evaluate what is, we explore what could be. And so this is where we dream. This is where we gain the insights of others in our team. This is where we look at best practices of other parishes. This is where we really collaborate. And so in these first 2 steps of strategic planning, the evaluating what is, the exploring about what could be, I encourage you to involve a lot of people, especially people that are involved in that area of your parish, to get their honest opinion about where you need to improve, and then get their ideas. The idea of collaboration is that in this room, in this space, in all the people involved, Our cumulative experience and knowledge and gifting will create a far better outcome than any one of us alone. So engage a lot of people that work in this area that you're planning for in this process of exploring possibilities. And then the last part is that we determine what will be. We take the data from our evaluating and our exploring, and we determine what will be. Now, here's another tool that is helpful in determining what will be. We call it Stop, Start, Refine. I know it's a really creative name for this tool, but and I also want to recognize that that is not the correct order for lights in a stoplight, but it's the correct order for us utilizing this tool. So we ask ourselves, based on what our needs are, where we're weak, what new ideas we have, what do we need to stop doing? What are we doing that's no longer effective in this area? What is utilizing our resources but not fulfilling our mission? And what do we need to start doing? What are new things that we need to create or do that we haven't done before? Now, listen, you are finite, your parish is finite, your resources are finite. You cannot start doing a bunch of new things if you don't stop doing anything. So the reason stop is the first step in this tool is that we've got to discipline ourselves to stop doing some things so that we have the bandwidth and the resources to start doing some new things. Stopping is the hardest part of planning. Acknowledging that things aren't effective, acknowledging that some people are going to be hurt or offended if we stop doing this, but what we're going to gain by doing new things is worth it. I just encourage you to think about what you need to stop doing in 2021 in order to be more effective and have more resources for things that are helpful to your mission. And then thirdly, we refine, we look at what is working. It's good, but it could be great. How can we refine that and make it better? Think about those three things and then take that information into your strategic plan. This is a very generic strategic plan. I created it in Excel. It's very simple, but it looks at goals, strategies, action steps or tactics, and then owners, start dates, finish dates, success metrics of how we're going to measure that, and what's the key to making it work. So I'll give you an example of one thing that could be on your strategic plan. That is, our goal is to help parishioners get more connected into our community. So I would also add the why to that, so that they can grow as a disciple through being accompanied by others in their faith journey. If we had more space there, I would put that, because the so that is what gives heart to the goal. It's not that just we want more activity. Why do we want more activity? Because we want people's lives transformed. So include that into your goals. So one strategy for that would be virtual coffee and donuts after Mass. So what are we going to do with that strategy? Well, the action step could be to schedule Zoom meetings after every Mass. And who's going to own that? Paul's going to own that. He's going to start working on that December 21st. And we're going to launch it January 11th. We feel like our new year, we've really got to ramp this up and make this happen quickly. Success metrics, these need to be specific things. So our success metric is going to be, we're hoping that 10% of the people that join online will participate in virtual coffee and donuts after Mass. And then what's the key to making this work? Technology, training, and promotion of this virtual coffee and donuts. When you get to this last step of actually creating a strategic plan, one of the most important things is being specific with what you put into this plan. If the owner is a group of people, listen, if something is owned by everyone, it's not really owned by anyone. The owner needs to be one person. Now that one person can delegate. They don't have to do everything. They're just the ones who get held accountable if it doesn't happen. Someone needs to own it. It needs to have due dates, and it needs to have a specific success metric. If that success metric is just people's participation, if that's what it says, if it just says success is going to be measured by the fact that people are participating, well, then you don't even have a goal that you're shooting for. If you have a goal, then you can increase your engagement in it. You can re-strategize to get more people involved. And you can measure when we've succeeded. That goals to start with, it may be accurate, it may not, but put something there. And then later you can reevaluate whether that goal was accurate or not and recalibrate for that. So Paul would take this, and as the owner of this, he would add some things to it. He would add some action steps. Like if we're going to do this, we've got to upgrade our Zoom plan. So after that, we've got to invite, train, and schedule hosts for every Mass. And then we've got to promote virtual coffee and donuts via the website, social media, newsletters, and announcements. So Andy's going to own the upgrading of the Zoom plan. Jennifer is going to invite people by December 2nd. December 21st. She's going to train by January 4th. And then she's going to schedule hosts by January 7th. What are the success metrics going to be in that? And those success metrics are going to be that we invite 20 people, we train 10 people, and we schedule 8 people. She's got some very specific numbers that she's trying to hit there. And the key to that is going to be personal invitation, not just putting out a blanket request. You don't want just anybody hosting these virtual Zooms. You want very specific people that you trust and that are well equipped for it. And then Marissa is going to own the promotion of it. She's going to create all these promotions by December 22nd. She's got a busy week ahead before Christmas. And then her goals are going to be 12 social media posts, 2 newsletters, and 10 announcements. Very specific goals that she can reach and measure, and we can know whether we accomplish those tasks or not. And then what's the key to making it work? Prioritization within your communication strategy. You got to prioritize this if you want it to happen. And I think being creative in the way that you promote it would be a key to making it work. So that's just an example of how you would utilize a basic strategic planning template with one goal, and how that one goal you could hand off to someone and give them a blank template, and then they would fill out this plan for that one goal. I want to look at 5 reasons that strategic plans fail. And I think we've all had brainstorming sessions. We all created plans and we've seen them succeed sometimes, but often fail. Here are 5 reasons. 1, it goes back to those key principles at the beginning: an unclear mission or vision. If people don't know what this plan is meant to accomplish, or what the goal is meant to accomplish, then it's going to be kind of haphazard in the way that it's put together. It's going to be kind of a shotgun approach rather than a clear, focused approach. 2 is failure to involve stakeholders in the process. If just, as I said, if this plan is just created by one person who is not super involved in that area, or maybe they are, but they're not allowing other people to have voices, it's not going to be as good as it can be, and you're not going to have any buy-in from people that have to implement this plan. Thirdly, rushing the process, going straight to actions. One thing I've learned in creating strategic plans is you really see people's personality types come out. Some people love to spend time in that evaluating stage. I mean, they want to analyze everything, paralysis of analysis, right? You have other people that want to just spend time in the dreaming, exploring stage, and just pondering and imagining what all the ideas are that we could try. And then you have people that they just want to get it done. They're just like, forget all that. Let's just put some things on paper and get it done. I was in a strategic planning session with someone who was very much like that. And they're great people to implement the plan, but they're not always helpful when creating it. And they said, we were wrestling through a lot of things that we needed to make decisions about. And they said, listen, all I know is I've just got to fill out these boxes. So let's get them done. Well, is that plan going to be very effective? Probably not. So don't rush the process. If you're one of those people that just needs to get to the end, be patient. Allow the evaluating and exploring part to happen so that you have the right data and the best ideas when creating the plan. And then a lack of details, owners' due dates. If your goals are vague, if your strategies are vague, if you have groups of people that own something, like the hospitality ministry owns a certain thing. Well, No, a person in the hospitality ministry needs to own that thing, but not the whole ministry. And then lastly, a lack of accountability. If none of this is revisited later, then probably very little of it's going to get done. So I encourage you to create a visual strategic plan, not just online, but put it on paper, print something like this up big. Whenever we work with learning communities, we create strategic plans that are like 3 feet by 4 feet on paper and put it on the wall in the office for everyone to see. Of course, if they're not in the office now, have people print it out and put it next to their desk at home. But it helps keep us accountable, and then set up follow-up meetings to follow up on that plan and check accountability. We're working on some strategic planning at Renew right now. And our goal is every 2 weeks, we're going to revisit those plans as a group, and we're going to talk through them and be held accountable to them. Pandemic strat planning tips. We're in a different season of planning than we've ever been before. And based on the last 9 months, I just want to give you some tips on things that we've seen be more successful in planning. One I want to suggest is to plan for nothing to change for 6 months. With the arrival of the vaccine, there's a temptation for us to start planning what could be. Well, maybe 3 months from now, we're going to start meeting everything in person. Maybe people have the vaccine, maybe they don't. Just know that it's not going to be like someone flips a switch and suddenly everyone participates on the same level in person. There's going to be people that don't take the vaccine. There's going to be people that don't trust the vaccine. There's going to be people that are still high risk, that still don't feel comfortable meeting in person 3 months from now. Save yourself a lot of anxiety. And for most things, I would plan to continue to operate as you are for the next 6 months. I was talking to somebody last week who's planning a staff retreat in January or February. And they said, well, we want to plan if it's in person, it could be like this. If it's virtual, it could be like this. And I was just saying, hey, plan for it to be virtual. If something radically changes and suddenly the world is totally changed and everyone has the vaccine and everyone feels safe and everyone can be involved, then that's great. You can easily adapt to that. But plan for things to be as they are. It'll save you a lot of stress and anxiety and headaches. Make shorter plans and revisit them regularly. Don't do a 1-year strategic plan, do a 3-month strategic plan or do a 6-month strategic plan, but revisit on a 2-week or to a 1-month basis to see if you need to make any changes because of the changing world. Be willing to fail. Try new things. Have a culture of experimentation. If your parish is a culture where it's not safe to fail and it's not safe to try new things, you are not going to make much progress in breaking through in areas where you're struggling. And that really leads into our next idea, and that is take advantage of the opportunities while you can. If you've watched any of my webinars over the last 9 months, you've heard me say disruption brings opportunity. During this time, parishes have remodeled the church. They've put in, they've added video screens, because when people are meeting in person, they're not going to be picking up books that you have to clean off after every mass. Video screens that people once opposed, now there's actually a medical reason why they're a good idea. A lot of parishes have gotten rid of their bulletin. A lot of parishes have moved a lot of their giving to online giving. Disruption is opportunity for change. And so use this time while you still have it to make changes that might have been more difficult previously. And then lastly, keep in mind these 3 areas as you plan: online, at home, and on site. We're about to talk to Flip, and we're going to hear from him how they're continuing to plan to work in these 3 areas, because even when we go back to a more normalized parish experience, there's things that we have learned are more effective online than they were in person. And so what do we want to keep doing online? Because we're engaging with people actually better that way. So you've heard me say our mission statement many times probably, but I want to, before we meet with Flip, I want to just remind you once again about our learning communities, because if there was ever a time that you need to be working closely with other creative and courageous Catholic leaders in your planning, in your strategizing, in your learning, I'd say now is the time. I've had people ask me, well, with everything that's so uncertain, everything that's going on in the world right now, why would we get involved in a learning community? And I respond with, why would you not get involved in a learning community? I mean, why would you not want to be involved with 10 other parishes from around the country who are facing all the same challenges that you are? What a great time to learn from these other parishes, to plan together, strategize together, and then be accountable to each other together. Listen, there are some of you right now that you have a great heart. You are creative and courageous, and you're struggling. You kind of feel alone. And I just want you to know, I think now is the time for you to say yes to being involved in a cohort with 10 other leaders. And over the next 18 months, break through in ways that your parish has continued to struggle and experience a thriving discipleship in your community. I will say that we have parishes in our program that have been through our cohorts that right now are actually saying, because of what they learned and how they learned to plan for the future, they are thriving. Believe it or not, their giving is higher than it was a year ago. Their parishioner engagement is high. And they are finding that the principles they learned that worked outside of the pandemic, those principles are still working in the midst of the pandemic. So our next one starts in April. You have plenty of time to ramp up, to get everybody on board, to talk to the parish council, put it in your budget. Encourage you to reach out to us. Let us know. We'd love to talk to you more about it, answer any questions that you have. And then lastly, our on-site workshops. These are both virtual and in person. And this is where we do basically a webinar specifically for your parish or for your diocese, and engage your leadership teams, your volunteers, and give them a chance to learn, to evaluate, to plan together, and we facilitate the whole thing. We've done some in the last month with dioceses, and one that we did that was the biggest thing that we've ever done was we did a ministry day for the Diocese of Rockford that involved over 80 parishes, over 300 people online at one time, learning together, planning. We put the parishes into breakout groups where they worked together on their strategic plans within their groups and then came back and reported to everyone else what they were working on. We also did one with the Archdiocese of Newark, helping those parishes plan for Christmas and Easter. So if you're working with a diocese or archdiocese, maybe we want to do that with you for Lent and Easter. Let us know. We'd love to help you create something to just better equip your leaders within your diocese, provide a resource for them in planning for the future. Lastly, we do have a webinar library that is free that you can access through our website. I encourage you to sign up for that. And once again, thank you for being a part of number 25 in our webinar series. We're grateful to have you join us, and we're grateful that it's helpful to you. Well, that said, I'm going to jump off of this screen sharing. And Flip Sanchez is here with me live. Hello, Felipe.
Hey, John, congratulations on 25 webinars. That's awesome. I remember when we first started. And I want to say hi to all the viewers. I noticed some names of the participants, some familiar names. And just hello, everyone.
Yeah. Hello, Mike. Mike Sanfratello is on here with us. And I know Scott Weeman is with us from San Diego, Catholic in Recovery. So thank you for joining us. Well, Flip, you have a unique perspective because you used to lead parishes through strategic planning as executive director of Parish Catalyst. Then you went to work as director of operations for a parish. And I know that St. Monica's, they were in our first learning community ever. One part of being in a learning community is that you learn all these tools. And it's kind of like that old adage that if you give someone a fish, they eat for a day. If you teach them how to fish, they eat for a lifetime. We hope to equip parishes for a lifetime of renewal and strategic planning. But what was that like going in to be a part of that process on the inside? And what have you been learning in that process?
Sure. Well, I was fortunate that I came to a parish that had a culture of strategic planning. So In fact, you mentioned St. Monica's was a part of the Parish Catalyst's very first learning community, where they went through this process with 10 other parishes of strategic planning. And on their strategic plan, they had one of their goals was to engage more young adults. And one of the action items was to invite some young adults onto the parish council. And I was fortunate to be one of those young adults who was invited onto the parish council. And that was transformative to my life, to be involved in parish life. I wasn't in the church world before, other than just being a parishioner. And that led me to working at Parish Catalyst and now to working at St. Monica. So I'm grateful to Parish Catalyst, to St. Monica's. I'm grateful for that plan. So I walked into this environment where there was already a planning process, and I brought some of my gifts from Parish Catalyst. I think the biggest thing was the connections that I made with other parishes, like you mentioned, St. Bridget in San Diego and our Mother of Confidence. Just having those connections in parishes, great parishes from across the country that I can call and say, hey, this is the first time we've done this. I see you guys are doing a good job. And being able to collaborate with them. So not only collaborating with people from our community, but from outside our community and even other dioceses.
Well, as you came in, how long was it before the pandemic when you came into that role?
Sure, I started about this time last year, and after a few months, I think March 17th was the day we shut down. So I've served in this role for longer during the pandemic. I was only like 3 or 4 months of non-pandemic time, and now it's been about 9 months of pandemic time. So it's been interesting.
So when the pandemic hit, you guys shut down, you went into kind of like turbo strategic planning phase. You increased everything. You increased your meetings. You increased how often you meet. Tell us how you did that, because I do think a key aspect of planning in this unique time is meeting often and revisiting our progress often. What did you guys do?
Sure. Well, you talked about the collaboration, and collaboration is so important. We have a core staff of about 8 people who are in charge of different ministries and in charge of different areas of parish life. But many of those people were working from home, and some felt disconnected because they weren't here involved in the day-to-day parish life. So we wanted to make sure that people felt connected. So we started meeting every day at 9 in the morning. We just called it our staff coffee time. We pour ourselves a cup of coffee and we get online together. And most of the time we'd start off with a prayer and do some spiritual reflection, maybe some fun activity. And then it was just a chance for each of us to check in and say, how are we doing with our liturgies? How are we doing with our online meetings? And that helped, that spirit of collaboration, to where when we did meet for more planning kind of meetings, people already were in the know and they felt like they were connected with our staff and with the larger community.
So you started out meeting every day. Now you're meeting like twice a week. It doesn't have to be a long meeting. I'm working with a parish in Las Vegas that started doing a morning huddle every morning for like 15 minutes. Everyone that can meet it joins in. They got that idea from you. But I will say that one thing I kind of chronically hear that is an area of dysfunction in parishes is a lack of regular meeting, regular communication. And that huddle up, if it's twice a week, if it's every day, it helps break through silos. It helps resolve problems where people say, I can't get a hold of this person. Well, if they're once or twice a week or every day invited to a meeting, you're going to get a hold of them. What else are you doing to plan as you look forward to 2021? How are you thinking about it, and how are you planning?
Sure. Well, we're right in the middle of a strategic planning process that we already had planned for our 5-year strategic plan. So it's more of a long-term plan. And we're being led through that process by our associate pastor, Father Dave Bayat. And it's a long process of both personal discernment and communal discernment. But within that, we're right in the middle of this pandemic and we need short-term planning. So we have a long-term strategy, but then we're looking at what the current needs of our community are. Our needs today are much more different than they were a year ago. And they're going to be different in the next few months. Eventually, we will return and we long for that day. When we do, we know the workflow is going to be different. We've got many people who have held off their wedding or a funeral. So we know there's going to be that kind of busyness around the parish, and we want to be able to be ready for it. So it's about looking at the needs of our community, discerning how we could best address those needs with the resources we have right now.
You know, as we helped parishes do that, and we watched parishes come and go through our learning communities, uh, there were definitely some things that stood out as to what made them successful or not successful. And I don't know if you were with us for the first half of this, but I talked about some things that cause strategic plans to fail or succeed. What stood out to you the most out of parishes that you saw succeed in making plans and fulfilling those plans?
Collaboration. I keep saying that word. I say courage and collaboration. So the courage part, don't don't be afraid to be bold and creative in your planning. But and then when we talk about collaboration, not only collaborating as a team, but with other parishes. We have so many gifted and talented people in the Catholic Church, and we're all one big church. So don't be afraid to reach out to somebody if you don't have an answer. Mike Sanfratello, him and I have talked in the last few months. He gave me a call and just had a question, and that's a successful parish wanting to get better, and they call and ask for help when they need it. So I'll even share my email address on here. If anyone has a question for me, don't be shy, and if you're out there, just don't be shy about calling one another.
You know, when you and I talked about this yesterday, there was one other thing that you mentioned that was necessary for being successful, and it was accountability.
Sure.
What are your thoughts on that?
Sure. I think you said it before, have an owner of if you have a goal or an action item, say, we want to do this. Uh, it's really just a dream or wish out there. If you assign an owner and then a start date and a finish date, then it's something that you could go back and check and say, okay, it is December the 15th now. This was the day we said we were going to finish by. Where are you on this project? And you go to that person and get an answer. And then that metric to be able to measure it by. When you could attach a certain metric, Bill Simon, who's the founder of Parish Catalyst, used to say, we're maniacs for measuring. So at Parish Catalyst, anytime we do something, we would take a snapshot of what things looked like before, and then we'd have a goal, like a certain number that we wanted to reach, and we'd be able to look at it after and say, did we hit this number or not? And it's really easy to know when you have that number pre-established.
Yeah, this area of accountability is such a huge thing. We could spend a lot of time on it. But I will say specifically to leaders and pastors that are watching, if you are not holding your team accountable to doing their jobs, if you're not holding people accountable to responsibilities, two things are happening. One is that you are not achieving the outcomes that you need to. Two is that the people that are good and accountable and get their work done are really frustrated because they see what's happening around them and they see your lack of courage to address situations and to hold people accountable. And it's frustrating for them because they're working hard and they're getting their things done. So I would just say, listen, the lack of accountability among staff and leaders and plans is costing you far more than you ever realized. And far more than any kind of conflict might cost you by holding people accountable. So also this accountability, it needs to be like at least quarterly or or twice a year, there needs to be evaluations of how people are doing, of their jobs, and whether they're actually doing what they're hired to do or what they're invited to do. And through that, people know where they need to get better. They need that kind of feedback so they can improve at their job. Flip, any other thoughts on that as someone who's leading a large group of people now?
Yeah, I would say even just what you just said, John, they evaluating, not only evaluating your staff, but evaluating how something went. So let's say you had an action item and like Christmas, it's important to 2 weeks after Christmas, go through and say, what were our goals this past Christmas? And how did we meet those goals? And what worked, what didn't work? That way next year we know, uh, you know, we know where we are and we know, okay, let's not do that again. This really works. So let's invest more into this strategy.
Yeah, yeah, I'm so glad you said that because it reminded me of something else that we evaluate, and that is systems and processes. So maybe we invited the people to something. Maybe we did a great job of promoting it. Maybe we did a great job of creating it. But when they went to sign up for it online, that system was totally dysfunctional. Have you ever been on a website trying to buy something or fill something out? Listen, I'm sorry. If there's anyone here that works for the United States Post Office, I'm sorry that you have to work for the United States Post Office. I tried to print a shipping label online the other day. It took me an hour. I was just like, I was trying to save time from going to the post office, and it took me longer to do it online. I think often our volunteers and our staff and even our parishioners can feel the same way about some of the systems and processes that we're using, trying to use to fulfill our plan. As we get to the end here, I want to address some of these questions that are coming in. And this first question is, how often are you supposed to visit a strategic plan? A 3-month, a 6-month, a year-long plan? How often should you revisit it? And what should you be doing that would make the visit productive? I would say it depends on, like I said, right now during pandemic, I would say more often than you would in a normal year. I would say in a normal year, I would revisit it monthly. It doesn't need to be a long meeting. Just revisit the deliverables, revisit the action steps, and maybe use that SWOT analysis as to, what's working, where are we failing, what are threats that have arisen to this action, and what are new opportunities maybe that have come up since we created the plan. So I would say I would revisit it at least monthly in a brief manner, and then quarterly in a little more in-depth, like bring your team together for an hour or two and really look at it. Flip, what are your thoughts on that?
Sure, no, I absolutely agree. And we talked about this a little yesterday. When you're doing that, find those bright spots, those things that are really working. We talked about the hardest part about strategic planning is stopping doing something. So during this time of pandemic, we've had to stop doing many things because it just couldn't be done that way. Like we would have never planned to do it this way, but we had to stop to invest in our online experience or whatever you're investing in. We're starting to now see fruits from that. And so when you do see fruit from a certain initiative or after you've evaluated, you got to hold that up and say, okay, how can we reproduce this in other areas of parish life? What else do we need to stop so something else could flourish? It's like pruning a tree.
Something you shared with me about is how your wife's involvement in a women's group has been actually better virtually than it was in person. And that's something that as you're evaluating the future of the parish, you're looking at what hybrid models are we going to keep in place because they actually worked better. Tell that story
Right.
about her group.
Yeah, my wife's in a mom's ministry, and they have a huge turnout every Tuesday night. And before, it would have been impossible for many of these women to be able to meet because they would have to arrange a babysitter or get home on time to put their kid down to sleep. And now they could just simply log on at, I think they meet at 7 o'clock. They log on to a Zoom and they're able to share an hour with each other in prayer and fellowship. And many of the ladies have said, well, when the pandemic's over, could we still meet online? Because otherwise I won't be able to make it if life's too chaotic. So we
And I
want to
think
be able
there's
to
going to be
provide those
hybrid
opportunities.
models.
Go ahead.
Yeah, in ways that people do both, right? Like maybe once a month they meet as a group in person, and maybe weekly they meet online. Some different combinations that people might be able to do both and in the future, and it be more effective.
Right. We're even equipping some of our meeting rooms right now with webcams. So they'll be able to do kind of a hybrid meeting where if some people choose to come on campus for a meeting and somebody is out of town or they just can't make it that day, they can still log on and be able to participate in that meeting remotely.
I want to answer a couple other questions here. One says, are pastors keen on involving outsiders? In other words, non-parishioners or even non-Catholics. What's your opinion on this? And I guess it depends on how they're being involved. I think, especially if you're talking about evangelization, it's great to include outsiders in the conversation to get their perspective. I think often we can think we're doing something that's helpful and engaging with people, but in reality, it's not. So we need to hear from them. I would say when it comes down to the actual planning, it needs to be a smaller team. You can't make good plans with 20 people all speaking into it. We talked earlier about the different phases, what is, what could be, what will be. I would involve lots of different people in the evaluating what is. I would still involve lots of people in the exploring what could be. But when it comes down to the what will be, I would involve a smaller leadership team of people that are directly involved in that area, and then maybe run that plan by some people and get their feedback on it. But I would say one reason that plans fail, besides not having outsiders involved, is having too many people involved. Have you experienced that, Flip, where you can't make a decision on anything?
Right, right. No, I agree. But I think for the actual strategic planning process, outside intervention is really, really helpful. If you're having somebody from the outside help facilitate you through that process, it's great because sometimes that outsider will see things within your staff or within your plan that you just can't see because you're involved in the day-to-day of things. So we've had Parish Catalyst facilitate our annual retreat where we get away and we kind of plan for the year. We've had Parish Catalyst do that the last few years, but I would say it's extremely helpful to have outside intervention.
Well, it's end of our time here. We're going to wrap it up, but I really just want to encourage you to reach out to us and talk to us about ways that we could help you plan, whether it be joining a learning community, whether it be doing a virtual onsite for your staff and key leaders at your parish or your diocese. We've been doing this virtually for the last 6 to 8 months. We've really found effective ways to utilize our process in a virtual environment with breakout rooms, and found it to be very successful. So I also want to say, if you are wondering about joining a learning community and you're wondering about the finances, I got one question on here from Father John asking about the cost. And I understand that many of you are struggling financially right now. There is a cost. We're not going to get into details on here, but we'll talk to you about it. We'll talk about what you can do. We'll talk about other opportunities to maybe scholarship through Catholic nonprofits, or maybe your diocese might help contribute. I know some of you are laughing that I said that right now, but it's not impossible. But let's talk to you about it, because here's the thing. We're looking for creative, courageous leaders. And if that's you and finances are what is holding you back from saying yes to a learning community, I want to help you find a way to make it happen. And maybe even other parishes like St. Monica's might help scholarship your parish to be a part of a learning community. But don't let that hinder you. Reach out to us. The link is right here in the chat window to our Learning Communities Interest Form, or just go to our website, parishcatalyst.org, and click on Virtual Learning Communities, and I'll get in touch with you personally in the next week. Any other thoughts, Flip, before we go?
No, I think we talked about it the other day, how well these online virtual learning communities are going. And when you were talking just now about some of the costs, that was the major cost, was traveling to wherever the learning community was being held. So I think it's a really good opportunity right now with everything being virtual.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your busy day to join us, Flip. And thank you, everyone else, for joining us. I really hope and pray that this was helpful to you. Email me with any questions you might have, or just drop us a line at info@parishcatalyst.org. And we are praying for you heading into this new year. We believe God has great things for you and your parish as you think creatively and act courageously. God bless.